Hey everybody, can you hear me well? Please comment or in the chat if you can hear me well, because it's the first time I do it, so I'm not sure. Can everybody hear me? Sweet. Thanks so much for being here, guys. I'm very excited. First live. It's gonna be all about the outreach style and outreach in general, what I've learned personally. Gonna wait a little bit, like a few more minutes, just to see if there's more people we're gonna show. Hey everybody. Tofu Dog, Lewis, everybody, thank you so much for being here. How are you doing? All right. So yes, as you already know, this is going to be a live about what I've learned personally and what I've been taught as well. So I want to show you something I'm pretty proud of it. So yeah, so it's been a year, actually, a little bit more than a year. I started in the end of 2022 on campus, and it was a very different approach. At the end, there will be a Q&A, and the Q&A will be especially about the questions that are not going to be about what I'm talking in the, because I'm going to go point by point. And so if you have questions that are about something else in activism or whatever it is, keep it more for the Q&A and we'll talk about it then. Otherwise, if you have questions that are popping up while I'm talking, feel free to put them in the comment section and we'll put them up. Marcelo is here and helping me also with seeing all you guys. So yeah, all right. So I've been filming alone for a year. That's really what the year it's for. And also I've been doing With a Free for several months, like since last spring. And so we're not going to be talking about what I do with a Free, the type of outreach I do with a Free, because really it's very different, because they start with the footage. And so we start with like straight away knowing that this is a vegan thing when they watch the footage. And it's obviously all about suffering, like putting suffering forefront and then talking from there. My method is actually the opposite these days. So we're not going to talk about the different method I do with the Free. And actually I'm gonna try to make it more about exploitation and less about suffering in the future, because I have obviously a problem with that, and I'll go into that in this live. But yeah, so I've gone through a lot of different styles. I mean, a lot, to me it's a lot, but I've been through different prompts and styles that are not by me. The only one I've used that is mine and David Ciorina's is the last one. So I'm going to talk about what it used to be, what I've changed, and why I've changed it, and my do's and don'ts. And obviously I'm going to forget things. If you think I didn't address something that I've changed, or where just if you have any advice, feedback, criticisms, feel free to comment, and we'll address that as well. It's not only like, this live is not to give advice necessarily only. It's supposed to be an open conversation between you and me, because I really want to get your feedback as well and tips from you on, learning experience. Also, I'm nervous, as you can tell. This is my first time doing this, so pardon me for that. Yeah. So yeah, I think that, and I'm gonna do this on a yearly basis as well, because I think it's a very helpful thing to do, to just do an introspective look at your own outreach and other people's outreach as well. So yeah, let's start. So I've used the very first outreach method I've used wasn't actually this one. I forgot to put it on. It was I was on campus without filming myself, and I had this sign that said, uh, tell me why you aren't vegan or something like that. And the reason why I gave that up very quickly because it was kind of crazy. Like the only people I got were either I was getting people to throw insults at me from far away, or people who were like anti-vegan talking to me, or I had people who are very low-hanging fruit people, which is great. You want that, right? But I wanted to kind of try to expand like the people I get. And so in that sense, I just didn't like that because it was just like a very small, I felt like a small pool of people only were gonna stop by. But what I really liked about it is that everybody that passed me by, which were a lot of people because it was campus, it was where a lot of paths were meeting. I really liked that a lot of people saw the word vegan because that's good that it just reminded them of it. Um, mm, yeah, so that's the first style that I forgot to put there. And then I got Cliff Grant's and Very Vegan Mom. I think it's Cliff Grant who started it, and Very Vegan Mom took it on as well. And it's the 3 questions for animal lovers. I used that for a little bit. I started filming myself with that. Um, I have I have a lot of different thoughts about this now because um, I mean I think I'm actually going into that in the next section, but I'll just go into it now, I guess. Or maybe no, I'll go into it later because I've actually have a section for what I've changed and stuff. So and never mind. I'm just gonna you've seen already debug your brain style. He has different styles of outreach that I've used, and then this was a game changer for me. The victim's perspectives reverse psychology style. If you're interested into that, if you're interested, yeah, he has a full workshop with a free, and actually it's just him explaining step by step, very very deep workshop explaining what it's all about and how it works and how to do it. It's the thing like it's okay to abuse animals with a sign. That's his um, outreach method, and then of course mine and David's reverse psychology method about slavery. So, mm, okay. So I used to go just once a week. This is not like this is starting like it's gonna be chronologically. So starting with like what I do in the beginning of the outreach, and then at the end what I've changed. So I just did it once a week, but now I've started to do it multiple times a week because that way you can get a lot of footage and a lot of conversations. And so it's good because you can have a lot of choice for publishing online, the best ones, because you get a lot of conversations that are not a lot, but sometimes you're just not very proud of what you did because you didn't address what they said enough because either they didn't let you talk or you just learned better after and just not super proud of it, whatever. Some people will actually retract consent from being filmed, which is not necessarily, it's not illegal for you in public spaces. Depends where you live, but where I live, it's legal to film someone and put it online if they're in a public space and if it's not a hidden camera, I think, or maybe it's actually, I don't know, never mind. It's not that important, but yeah, so you gotta be careful because sometimes you can get screwed like that. And yeah, I used to do it on campus, which I think is a great place to do it because people on campus come from different states. They come from, it's, I don't know, I feel like also at that age, like younger people are often more open-minded. They're less identified with their culture or their ways of life, even their beliefs. They're learning, like in a learning environment, they're trying to build their identity. So it's a very great age to talk to. And also they are often, uh, I mean, especially in America, coming from different states to study. And so they are away from their family, not trying to sound like a cult, but if you're not with your family in the same town or in the same state, it might be easier to build yourself a more separate identity than your family. So I think it's a very cool thing indeed as well. I didn't like having to be able to do that on campus. I needed a sign to like a form, a release form, so that people were consenting to it. But like I had to make them sign it before the outreach began, and it was an extra barrier, which you don't want that. And so I stopped going on campus because of that. And yeah, that's pretty much why I stopped. And also, I wanted again a more broadened, like I wanted a broad pool of people to talk to, um, even if there were plenty of people on campus. But also on campus, they were like they were busy. They were coming from a class to a next, one class to the next, and so they often didn't have much time. Whereas when I do it now downtown, it's on the weekend afternoons, and so people have a lot of time on their hands usually, and that's also why I changed it. Um, but if you are worried, because I found it's much more nerve-wracking to to do it downtown. It's much more nerve-wracking, especially because there are farmers a lot and ranchers here around. Um, it's much easier to start on campus. I found for myself because people are more your age. I mean, for me, they are more my age, and they're just way less. I feel like students are just more open-minded in my experience. So um, yes, so I already talked about why I don't put vegan on the sign. Also, I really, really, really love the reverse psychology method because you get them to agree with you before they even know it's about veganism. When they know, obviously, that it's about veganism, they start to lose their mind because they get defensive, and so they're in a fight or flight mode, and it's like too much adrenaline or something. And so they're not intellectually honest as much anymore. And I mean, most of them aren't. So I keep it hidden for as long as possible now for these reasons. Um, and also, I want to let them know what veganism is before they know that this is about veganism. Because, um, like, if you don't like, I mean, I guess there's ways to do that with vegan on the sign, but anyhow, we'll go through that later as well. So I used to ask people, "Do you have 15 minutes?" And I think, and I had way more rejections. I felt like people who would stop and then who said, "I don't have 15 minutes." Because people will say like, "Oh, I have this amount of time," but then they actually want to stay often to finish the conversation, and that's happened to me. Um, so I don't think it's a good idea to say, "Do you have 15 minutes?" anymore, because if you're standing, doing outreach standing, and you're not sitting down, especially, they can leave at any time. Um, but if you say, "Do you have 15 minutes?" I don't know. It's just one more opportunity to say no to answering the question. So it happens very rarely that I actually have to discard a conversation because they just didn't stay. Um, that happens, but not very often. And it's very annoying because often they leave before they even know that it's about veganism when that happens, which is not often actually, it's rare. Um, uh, show us your worst conversation. That should be something actually I should do in a life in the future, definitely. It's a great idea. Um, anyhow, so yeah, okay, this one is a little subtle, but I used to say this might be triggering. I don't say that anymore. I say instead that it will be challenging because it's a little bit more it's more like a game. You want them to kind of see it like a game, like it's a fun, like, oh, it's a challenge kind of thing. It's not like, oh, she's just gonna trigger me for the sake of it kind of thing. And I think that it's a subtle difference, but I think it is a good one, honestly. I used to say this is filmed. I don't anymore because you don't need to do that if the camera is like obvious, which mine is very obvious, and also have a handheld mic, so it's very obvious. I don't say it because it's again an added barrier to them agreeing to it. Um, I used to also give an outline. I don't do that anymore. It was kind of trying to build rapport which I don't really do that much as well anymore. I do it in a different way, I guess. Um, I don't. I used to say like this is going to go like this, but I don't do it anymore. I think it was also to soothe myself before we began. Um, I used to ask them questions about themselves before starting, which is a, a lot of these tips that I've implemented were from Debug Your Brain. I mean, I don't remember which ones, but this one I remember was from Debug Your Brain. Oh, by the way, check it out. Not now, after the live, whenever you want. But if you haven't seen, Debug Your Brain has this live on outreach, on how to begin outreach, and it was really helpful to me. Very, very helpful to begin outreach, especially filmed outreach. So yeah, no, I don't ask them questions about themselves anymore because I build rapport in different ways now. And it was, again, one more thing I had to say before we went into the questions. So I had less time for the actual questions and conversation if I build rapport beforehand. But it was a little helpful, but I think it was also a little creepy because I didn't really tell them much about myself. I just asked them questions, so maybe it was a little bit creepy. And I used to sit as well, which was better for the framing of the camera. We could see people's faces better a little bit, but I stopped because again, it's all about the barriers. You don't want people to have to sit down, and it's better when they sit down so that they don't leave the conversation as easily, but it's harder to get them to sit down in the first place. So yeah. So I used to talk about suffering, like putting it at the forefront of the conversation, like animals are suffering um, because of you, which it is accurate, but and it is important, animal suffering. But like as a lot of you already know, my stance on that, um, putting suffering forward is a problem because not all types of exploitation include animal suffering. You can, for example, backyard hens and eggs. They're not necessarily suffering, but still using their bodies, and it's still a problem. So, still seeing them as resources, which is the root of the issue that we're trying to solve. So it's not really, suffering is not the point. So that's why I don't mention suffering anymore. And also because like I mean, because like people then go to like, yeah, but everything we do causes suffering in someone else, which is accurate. But it's not about that. I mean, of course, we should try to reduce suffering, of course, and talking about exploitation does that better than actually talking about suffering, which is the irony here. So I mean, that's what I think. Um, and yeah, so if you talk about suffering, they go straight to also humane exploitation, humane slavery, humane slaughter. You don't want that. And so you're kind of handing that to them a little bit when you're talking about suffering. And I understand why people talk about suffering because it is really the crux of, I mean, when you empathize with the animals, you care about their suffering, but also suffering is not the only interest, like Gary Francione says, it's not the only interest that animals have. They also have an interest to body sovereignty and integrity and not being used as slaves or resources and not to live in servitude and not to be killed, whatever. All these other interests are important to them as well. So I want to look at your comments a little bit. Interesting. Rapport building can come across as retrospectively manipulative when it is revealed you're there to convince them to be a vegan. I get that. Yes. But not, I mean, it can seem like that, but again, like if you, for example, as I do, I say it's a social experiment and I don't tell them what it's about, but they're signing up for whatever it is about. So they're signing up to not know. So they're consenting to not know. So it's not really like you're tricking them. But yes, it can seem like that, and it is manipulative in some sense, even if it's not evil or anything like that. It's for, it's for a good cause, really, to hold them accountable for the whole things they're supporting. But yeah, interesting point. Um, yep. So same thing with animal abuse and cruelty. I don't. It's kind of the same reasons. Like, I mean, not really, but it's like it doesn't really matter if you're cruel to someone while you're enslaving them. Like, if you're a good slave owner, like it's still a problem. It's not about the cruelty. Like, I mean, you could argue that slavery, animal slavery or hunting, whatever, is intrinsically, you know what I mean? Sorry for my bad English. It's in and of itself cruel, but people don't necessarily see it like that. But like they see cruelty as like um, on top of using an animal, you are kicking them, for example, and they don't even see slitting the throat of an animal or using their bodies or making them do forced labor, stuff like this. They don't see that as cruel for some reason because of just our society's view of animal cruelty and what it's like. So that's a problem. Maybe that would be a good prompt in outreach to to kind of go into that. But anyway, I'm not a prompt, but to go into that. Um, I don't know. Animal abuse is like people will be like, it's not abuse if it's a proper use of. You're not abusing an animal if it's the proper use of an animal to be exploited or to have their body used, which is insane. So because obviously, like we're talking about, we don't want them to be used because to us, because that's just the truth. It's abuse to use someone else's body against their will. They can't consent, whatever, and so yeah. Um, Health and sustainability. Okay, so that one I used to do a lot. Not really. I mean, not. I mean, I didn't really lead with that, but the thing is, uh, I didn't lead with health and sustainability, but I would stay on it a little bit too long, in my opinion. It's just that if you lead with health and sustainability, okay, it's just that people will go into these to avoid the ethical point of like it's not okay to enslave animals or to use them, whatever. And they will go into these rabbit holes of like, yeah, but this study is, funded by whatever, whatever. But then they completely miss the point, basically, of veganism. And so it's important, of course, to address what they're saying, like the misinformation they're saying, or like maybe the fact that they don't know that it's healthy because of, the Academy of Nutrition Dietetics sense or whatever it is. They might not know actually that it's healthy, but it's not really the big problem. If they really got the ethical thing, they would try to find a way to make it work. Because when you get the problem, you're just trying to find a way to make it work, you know. Sustainability is also like it's a problem because yes, it is obviously animal agriculture is the leading cause of one of the main causes of environmental destruction and climate change. But if you were for example, like just talking about diet, eat insects, it's actually not necessarily bad for the environment, but it's not vegan because they're animals, they're sentient, and so it's just as messed up. So that wouldn't necessarily work in that instance, apart from the fact that this is not what veganism is about. Um, but it's like it's weird to talk about health and sustainability when you're talking about um, women's rights or human rights. It's the same thing for the animal rights, really, and it's understandable why we would lead with that because we want to be trying to be as efficient, of course, but I think it backfires. Um, Also, like remembering about the sustainability aspect. Um, Also, there's plenty of other types of animal exploitation and use that are not bad for the environment, and we're not encompassing that when we're talking about the environmental impacts of animal agriculture. So that's a problem as well. Um, and yeah, I might forget things, but it's gonna happen. So I used to talk way more about killing. I've stopped doing that because of like the problem is like when people, I mean, they do that usually in a dishonest way, but they say, well, you do kill insects, for example, in pesticides, and it's intended, right? It's not an accident, and it is true, and like it's not like a yeah, it's not like an accident, whatever. And when we're not talking about the right to life, because it's no such thing. For example, like in accidents, animal and humans will be killed and stuff like that. Even if we know, for example, in car accidents, we know that we're gonna have people get killed and animals get killed. We still do it, right? Because there's no real right to life. It's not really a thing, right? Um, so yeah. Also, I'm not forgetting other things about this. Okay. Mm, I think. Yeah, and also I say it to the people like, veganism is about animal use and exploitation. It's not about the number of reducing the number of deaths or reducing the amount of suffering that is happening for other animals, even if these are important, of course. It's not what it's about. And so this is not really a vegan problem, it's a utilitarian problem, really, that we're talking about. But, and of course, not even for the pesticides, of course, it's not like vegans don't care about that. It's just that we can make it better through veganic agriculture. So I say that as well. We can obviously, and we should make it better. We should find a better way to have crops without pesticides, obviously, like vertical farming, veganic agriculture, whatever. And who is going to do that? It's vegans, right? So, um, yeah, it's not necessarily something we can do as vegans right now in terms of like we can buy at the store. There's not really an option for that apart from growing your own food, which is not accessible for most people. Um, yeah. Um, I think I'm gonna forget so many things. um, yeah. So I mean, I think that this is a natural thing that happens when you start something like outreach. But I was very scared of uh, offending or upsetting people before, way more than now. Um, but like, I would think that if I ask hard questions, it would be. I mean, if my questions were too hard, it would be really bad for rapport or something. But it's really not the case. It's really you can you can ask. I mean, that's something I've learned from Debug Your Brain, which blew my mind. The fact that you can. I mean, he's done that very well in one of his videos, especially where he makes the comparison with the animal holocaust, the animal holocaust and the Jewish Holocaust. And he asks people, how similar are these things, and it's really like it's hard. It's a hard approach. I mean, it's accurate, but like it's hard to ask strangers that and them not losing their mind, kind of thing. Um, and he did really well because he would build rapport, and the way he was asking questions was not it was not it was like curiosity, like the tone of curiosity, and it was yeah, it wasn't aggressive. Like I'm not judging people who are like, mad at people in outreach in terms of like I get why you're mad because doing outreach I'm usually boiling inside, but when it's going poorly. But if you are in an attitude of curiosity, they will probably adopt the same tone, and it's very helpful because they will be more intellectually honest. Um, so um, And yeah, the utilitarian calculations, I already kind of addressed that with the health and sustainability. I'm trying to not talk too much about that. I do talk about it when it is um, like like the fact that it's like whatever environmental like facts or whatever it is. Like I used to talk a lot about that, but now I try to to always bring it back to like the comparison with the slave owners because it's always so helpful. I've noticed like if even if they go into some kind of like thing about like the crop dust or whatever it is, like I don't know, maybe it's not that, maybe I'm confusing. Hmm. Anyways, I'm trying to not go into utilitarian calculations because then they lose sight of the fact that veganism is not a utilitarian stance or philosophy or whatever. So um just wanna keep track. Living in Montana as a vegan is like playing life on hard mode. It's impressive. Not really where I am. Maybe in the little towns that have like very few stores and stuff. I get that. That would be much harder. Possible, but much harder. I live in Bozeman, which is one of the biggest cities in I mean cities in Montana. So it's pretty big. It's not like in the middle of nowhere, honestly. So it's also a student town, so it's really not. I mean, it's a campus town. Yeah, so all these questions I answered now, but I should have answered in the Q&A if you have things like that. So legumetinati, it's not that suffering, abuse, and cruelty aren't important, but addressing as the focus leads to welfare is reply from non-vegans. Exactly. Yep. Anyways, if you have things that really you want me to talk about, um, and I didn't see them, try it again, and I'll try it in the Q&A, and I'll try to. Okay, interesting one. Do you think it is better to have them at least hypothetically accept animal use is harmful to health or environment, or to remind them that if it was helpful, even it was helpful, I'm not exactly sure what you said, but exploitation is not morally justifiable. Not exactly sure what you mean, but the thing is that only some animal use, I mean, a lot of animal use, like maybe most of it, but like not all animal use and exploitation is bad for your health or the environment. Like riding horses is animal exploitation, but it's not bad for you or the environment. Um, so I don't think, I think I think it's important to address it, of course, when it's like they use it as a reason not to go fully plant-based. But as like a motivation, no, I don't think it's helpful because it doesn't address everything. Um, I used to do that a lot. I get it, but anyways. Oh, I want to give a try face to face a try for you get face to face activism, but I get angry very fast. I talk to AI and lose my mind. Talking with real people would be insane. I really okay. I might seem chill in my outreach, but I get so angry inside. I work very hard. Okay, I seem like a very chill person. I'm not. I'm not at all. I get very, very angry. When usually I look like I'm calm. Sometimes I kind of lose it in outreach. But I'm not like a lot of people that do outreach, even film outreach, even if they seem like calm, a lot of them are just very angry. They're just good at controlling what they are looking. Not, I mean, I think it's I think it's important to control how you are perceived in terms of like emotions because if you lose control, you look like kind of childish. You look like you don't have any self control and you're not emotionally mature. Like you look like a child. And even if your emotion is very, of course, valid, um, they don't see it like that. They see it as like you're you're a child or something. Um, so I think staying calm and just composed is the best, the most convincing way to talk to someone, but I'll talk later about how anger has a place as well, like compassion, and I'm kind of figuring things out these days about this. I'm not exactly sure, but I think you're underestimating yourself because I thought that as well. I thought I would not be able to do outreach, but I think I mean, most people can definitely do it. Maybe not people who are very, very petrified by other people, but most people are not. But honestly, you learn. I'm boiling inside usually, so um yeah, so I'll continue. So um yeah, okay, I'm done with this one. Okay, so um the religion dive, yes. Okay, so I was not brought up religious at all. So I don't know much at all about religion, and it's always like, oh no, oh no. So many people around here are Christian, so it was a problem before, not anymore because I figured out something that works. I think. I used to go into like I had some like pre-made like answers in my head about like for Christians, what like something in the Bible said that, and so what you say, whatever. Basically, a little bit like Joy Cobstrong, what he does when a Christian like he goes into their frame, their mindset, and he tries to go with that, which makes sense because it's hard to yeah, like you're not gonna if you're an atheist or you're another religion, fighting them on two paradigms that they have is not necessarily very smart or doable. But now what I do instead, which I mean, it only really I've done it for like three times or something, three people that were religious and used it for uh, justifying like animal use and stuff and slavery. I just because I use reverse psychology with questions that are basically gotcha questions, so that they already answer things that I'm gonna use against them later. Like for example, I asked them if a slave owner is going to if a slave owner justifies owning a slave because they think that the slave is here for them. What do you think about that? Or should we care more? And this one especially is it's usually the one I use because they usually say like, well, God put animals here for us. I mean, Christians say that, and so I refer back to that, and that is how I deal with religion now. Because no, it doesn't matter if like your beliefs say that it's fine to oppress someone else or use someone else's body, or it doesn't matter if your religion says it's okay to rape someone or kill someone. It doesn't matter what you believe. It's not a justification for anything. So entertaining that thought that just because your religion or your beliefs say that it's okay is dangerous and it's messed up in some sense. It makes sense why the activists would do that, but I think it's not the way to go. Having like having a question ready for these types of things is very helpful. Like, well, slave owners also thought that animals were there. I mean, animals. They thought that animals and black people were here for them to serve them, to be their slaves. It's the same mentality, and it's worked really well, way better than in the past. I mean, for me, in my experience, uh, using actually their own Bible stuff, which I don't know much about, um, to counter that. I used to show footage every single time. I did that for most of the outreach, but I don't do that anymore because I do it. Okay, different things. Like I've already mentioned, it brings a focus on suffering, which is powerful, but also you have to be very careful afterwards to tell them that this suffering is that you're seeing is the result of the mentality of like people seeing animals as resources and that they're here for them and that it's okay to enslave them. Um, it can be very helpful. Like a lot of people have gone vegan because they have empathized with animal suffering, right? But it's important to go further than that. So um, it can be tricky, but I think it's powerful. But I might incorporate it more in the future. I'm not exactly sure. Still thinking about it. Also, it does. I mean, I had this video that was 5 minutes long, animal footage, and I think it's important in footage to show things that people don't link necessarily with veganism that much, especially like fish, the fishing industry, um, leather, you know, um, like things that are like animal suffering, yes, but not only like I mean, it's just I had a video where I had a lot of different industries in a short amount of time, and most of them were welfare industries. Like most footage that animal activists and animal rights activists use is footage from how you call it? It's basically footage that is like welfare standards. Like it's not like the worst of the worst. It's like what is supposed to be humane. It's what's considered humane. Having this type of footage, I think, is great. But yeah, I don't also do it because when I've tried to do this footage, people tend to use it as an app. Be like, oh, actually, never mind, I gotta go. I'd rather just them understand the principle of veganism, and also most people have seen footage, um, and they go straight to human exploitation. So if I don't know, it's I'm kind of split on that. I don't know, but right now I'd rather not use footage. Oh, okay, yeah, I do this a little bit too much still. Nodding when people are talking. I try now to not nod when they're saying something I don't think is true or I don't agree with, whatever, or something that's problematic, because I don't want to subconsciously, cheer them on or something. Um, but nodding when you do agree with them, I think, is important to just build rapport. And smiling or making a joke if possible, because it can be complicated when you have nerves to do that, but it can be helpful for rapport. Uh, at some point, I I would leave. I mean, I did that a very short amount, like for 2 conversations or something. I would leave when it was too heated because they wouldn't let me talk. It's great for YouTube if you like. If I mean, it's all. I mean, I think it's always important to stay with a person, even if it feels like it's going nowhere, because when someone is very triggered, it's usually a good sign. Like it's actually been research about why people are so triggered by vegans. Um, and they said that people who are more triggered by vegans than others are triggered not because they disagree so much with vegans, because they have the most similar values or something, and so they are the most. It touches something in them. So it is a good sign that they are super triggered. So it's if you're having a very bad conversation, meaning like it's very heated and it's just a nightmare, remember it's probably a good thing it's not there. So that's important to keep in mind, because it's really hard to keep in mind. It feels like it's not going anywhere, but it probably is going somewhere. Mm. And I would leave because I felt like, okay, well, I could be just talking with the low hanging fruit person or something, someone who's closer to veganism. But then I was like remembering this point I just talked about. So I don't do that anymore. I used to end it with a question, which I think is a great way to do it. It's just I haven't. Maybe a question that I think is really cool is saying like, how urgently, if you were the animal in the slaughterhouse or the animal being enslaved, um, how urgently would you want someone, or would you need someone to stop doing this to you? Stop paying for this to happen to them. This is a very powerful one. I don't. I'm thinking about the ending of my outreach. I'm kind of rethinking it right now. I've gone through different things. um, so I'm rethinking it. So I'm not super sure on what the ending will be for me, but I think ending with a question is great. I really like the accountability thing at the end, like making them accountable, but you can make them accountable with a question, I guess. I just don't really know how to do that. And I've been using until the day you do go vegan, animals will be exploited and used and enslaved on your behalf. But I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit like giving them the allowance to do that. I mean, I know it's not really what I mean, but it sounds like, oh, so then it's. I mean, I feel like if I hear that, it's subconsciously like, oh, so it's an option for me to just not go vegan. I have the choice. Like it's an option that is an okay option. Like it's somehow like I'm giving them permission or something. It just feels like that to me. So I don't know. I want to change it. What was it? I was thinking about like remember that you're being part of something atrocious for the animals right now until the day that you go vegan. Something like that. That could be better maybe. Um, something to end with a bang. um, I had too many resources on my cards. I have a business card, and I had like didn't have many resources. I just had I had my own social so that they could keep up with my content, whatever, like see their video and stuff, and ask me questions if they had one um, about veganism. And I had a documentary and the challenge 22. But now I just have Dominion and my socials because the less resources you have, the less overwhelming it is for people. So I would, I mean that's what I've heard other activists say. Like, it's just a psychological thing. People are more likely to check it out if um, there's not too many things on it. So, okay, let's see what you say. I'm concerned. So that's what you meant. I'm concerned telling people animal use is not helpful implies that if it were helpful, it would be morally just exactly. Absolutely. Yep. It's not about it being helpful. It doesn't matter that it's beneficial for us. Yeah, maybe don't punch people. That wouldn't be a good look. Um, but maybe you can learn, but maybe don't punch people on average. um, so interesting. So women are also more likely to be vegan, with 9% of women identifying as vegan compared to 3% of men. I don't. Uh, and I think you forgot what I don't know what it is by this at all. I think it's 50-50, and most of the women are plant-based, but if it were to be true, wouldn't it be more effective to focus outreach efforts on women or I don't know what that means, but with the group that is more likely to resonate with the ideals of veganism. No, that makes sense. I get that. I mean, like going for the low hanging fruit kind of thing, but I think probably like um, a good way to combat that is also to kind of spread like information about how it doesn't make you less manly. It actually protecting the more vulnerable than you is more masculine actually than bullying them because you're stronger. Um, this could help balance that out, but I get what you mean. The thing is like how maybe you mean maybe you go in a place where there's like it's more like women or like there's more women in that place and you go outreach there. I mean, why not? Really, like I don't know. Maybe that's. I mean, I do it downtown. I don't know how I would do it in a place that it would be only women there, but that's an idea. But I think also a way to combat the weird thing it's not masculine to be vegan kind of thing would be a way to go about it as well, right? Yeah, yeah, and as you said, people who think they are vegan but are not vegan, they're plant-based. So we don't really know actually if there's more women than men. We know who that they're more plant-based. So that you said that, of course. Anyways, yeah, I'm not gonna read that whole conversation, but let me blow my nose real quick. Okay. Okay. So we're halfway through the the presentation, guys. Thanks for bearing with me. Okay. So, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Cool. So now, what I used to do and still do. So, basically, I this is a sign from Debug Your Brain. Thought-provoking questions. I added to that what he has on his sign as well, which is help me grow my YouTube channel. It's a little cringy because it's like, ooh, you're doing it for clout. I mean, maybe I am for being clout, whatever. But I added that because he said that the reason you put it on is that it helps. Like if someone you meet is asking you to help them, this is better for rapport than you actually, for example, trying to help that stranger. You know what I mean? Like I said it badly, but if you're asking someone like a stranger to help you, it's good for rapport. It's quite good for rapport, weirdly. So I do that now. And also, I used to have a hand-drawn sign, but now I do it through the computer, and I try to make it look professional. Try to look as professional as possible because, like you know your shit, and like you know what you're doing, and you're a professional or something. Because people take you more seriously. It's also very good for your confidence. Kind of fake it until you make it. Now that I have really nice equipment and that I have like a computer designed and everything sign, I feel so confident, and people are like, "Oh, this is legit. I want to try this." It's like, "Are we on TV or something?" They kind of take you more seriously than if you would be like a sign that's hand drawn and not really looking very good. I mean, you could make a hand drawn sign that looks amazing too, but I feel like computer designed signs are they look more professional in general. And something colorful, something that brings the eyes to your sign as well, and something that's visible from afar. I only have like an A4 sign, so it's like a normal sheet of paper because I printed at the library, and you can do it for free in some places, so it can be very helpful. But if you want to make it bigger, by all means, probably be a bit better. Also, a little trick I used to put like when I made my own outreach method with David C. Arenas, I wouldn't remember the questions very well because it's very overwhelming. It's normal to be very overwhelmed at first when you start outreach with a new method. But it's just it's so much at once. You have to remember so many things. And so to remember the questions so that I was less overwhelmed, I put them at the back of my sign so that I could refer to them if I needed to. So, and by the way, I said like I have nice equipment now, but I used to record with my iPhone as a microphone and another iPhone, my husband's like iPhone on for camera, and that's really good as well. Maybe not so much in cold temperatures. It looks really shady in cold temperatures, but it is it is something you can do if you don't want to spend the money or you don't have the money. It's totally fine. It works very well. So yes, now I already talked about I say challenging instead of triggering. Um, I'm still careful about rapport because it's just easier to, as I already mentioned, keep people intellectually honest as much as possible. And it makes you look more rational and more convincing. Um, Passion is different, but we'll talk about that afterwards. And sometimes there's a place for anger as well. It can be convincing, but if you're very much in control of it and you know what you're doing, I think, not completely losing it, of course. Not like disrespecting people. Like it just every time I see a vegan outreacher disrespecting them, like telling like them that they're stupid or something like that in an outreach, like to the person that's not vegan. I think it looks bad. It looks like childish. The emotion is very valid, but I don't think it's convincing. Maybe to a certain pool of people it is. Um, so yes, again, advice from Debug Your Brain: breathing before answering. Very helpful. I don't really remember to do that, but I should. I'm trying to. Breathing before answering, especially when you're triggered. Oh my god, it does wonders. There's something that happens in your brain, like when you're in fight or flight mode, when you have adrenaline, when you're mad. Is that like when you take a deep breath, it's not gonna be like the first response is like usually like aggressive or something, but if you stop for a second and you breathe, you're just calming your nervous system down, and so the answer you're gonna give will be better, like I mean more rational and less less emotional, whatever it is, like and will be probably a question that is good for rapport, like not uh destroying the rapport you have or something, or making it worse. Mm. Seeing people as pre-vegans instead of seeing them as anti-vegans, because I don't know, when you're super angry about what's happening with the animals, which is the same way to be, it just you kind of see everyone who's not vegan as like an anti-vegan a little bit, because it like, because if you're like always in the vegan activism space or something, you're always thinking about that, so to you it's so obvious. And so it feels kind of like subconsciously you're kind of seeing other people like, well, they have to have thought about it, or they have to be thinking about it often or something, right? But they probably don't. I mean, it doesn't justify what they're doing, but you know, they're not necessarily anti-vegan. They might be pre-vegans, you know. So it really helps rapport to think that way, and it just helps everything. It helps your stress levels as well. Mm, yeah, obviously I'm using the Socratic method since the beginning. I don't. I mean, you can. It can be. Of course, it can work without it, but I feel like it's just the best for rapport, especially. Rapport is so important because people stay like intellectually honest. It's not, you're not trying to make a friend. It's just that it does help um, with them staying intellectually honest. You know what I mean? But you know, that's just the way I do it. Uh, yeah. I mean, I was once eggs vegan. I wasn't eggs plant based. I wasn't vegan. I didn't get it. So and I get extremely mad when I see that there's an ex vegan. I mean, an ex vegan. I mean, I don't know. An ex plant based person or whatever. It makes me very mad now. But I was that. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like I was. It's not because I was that wasn't horrible, and they're not horrible as well. It's still horrible, but I understand it. I understand the mentality of um, at least some people who do that. But yeah, most vegans were not always vegan. Yeah. I'm worried I would miss some good points that you make. Oh my god, I so relate to this. Okay, how do you not forget things they say? I sometimes have trouble remembering all the arguments they bring up. Totally see. Okay, you can't. I've tried forever. I mean forever. In my little life as an activist, I've tried to remember everything. I can't. So what I do is I stop them. I actually asked Debug Your Brain this question because I didn't know how to do it, and he said, "Well, just like interrupt them respectfully, but just say, oh, hold on, I'm gonna stop you there before we go to the next one. We're gonna focus on that, and then we can go into other reasons you have, whatever." And it doesn't necessarily kill rapport. Like it's not bad for rapport, and you have to, because they just pile things on you, and then it's terrible because you didn't address stuff they brought up. So that's what I do now. I was procrastinating doing that for the longest time. So yeah. Okay, guys, I need to go to the restroom. I'll be back in a few minutes. So yeah, Hello. So, mm, okay. So, um, okay. So, I have a question. Most people pay people to kill animals for plants. To kill, okay, yeah. What is the real definition of vegan in your opinion? Well, it's veganism is the sense against animal use and exploitation. So, as I mentioned before, it's not a utilitarian thing about like reducing the amount of deaths or suffering of animals. Not that that is not an important thing to do as well. Just a separate issue. That's utilitarianism. So we should fix that through veganic agriculture, which is basically a type of agriculture that seeks to reduce crop deaths and all these things like that. But who's going to do that? Vegans, right? We need to make more vegans so that more people, because the only people who are going to care about that are vegans, who don't, who are actually are against animal slavery in the first place. Because people who don't care about animal slavery and animal exploitation in the first place, they're not going to care about crop deaths, are they? So yeah, that's what I would say to that. But it's not like vegans are actually um, loving it. Not like vegans are not loving the crop death thing. Obviously, we want to change that as well. But it's not a vegan issue. It's a problem that is a utilitarian problem. Uh, but yeah. So do more people stop for the answer thought-provoking question sign than it's okay to abuse animals sign? Which group, in your subjective estimation, is more empathetic and receptive? It's a very good question. Let me think. I haven't really thought of that. I should have. Hmm. Okay. I think the people. Okay, so it's hard to kind of compare because it's two definitely different strategies. Because obviously the people who stop with the animal abuse sign are they really care about animals in general, or I guess abuse of vulnerable beings, something like that. So it's a great pool of people to talk to, right? But so obviously I think they are the more empathetic people, definitely because they are drawn to that. But sometimes it's also people with a big ego who are just trying to kind of like I think the best like the most viewed video on my channel is the video with the teenagers, and I mean most of them were they had good empathy. They were yeah they were pretty empathetic, but one of them who had the strongest reaction did not care at all, not give a shit about like animal abuse or animal suffering even or anything like that. She just was trying to make a show of herself, or I don't know what it was, but she was the one with the like the worst reaction. She tried to take my like to turn off my camera and everything. She did actually, I think, and it was terrible. But then she was the one who was like saying, well, I don't think I'm not going to change kind of thing, whereas the other ones were more empathetic. So it depends, I guess. But I think probably, but I don't really know because now with like the thought provoking questions, what's really cool about that time is that it's people who like to be, I mean, in theory, they like a challenge, like a intellectual challenge maybe. And so it's a great pool of people to choose from as well. I just don't like that gives away that it's about animals, like the sign with animal abuse, and that it's about abuse. Even if I understand the strategy, of course, because I used it, but yeah. Let's see if I want to just before we continue. I was just taking a break. Um, okay. I called myself a vegan for a few years, but I really was not in my mind fully understanding that it is not all about calculations and suffering and such. So I think I only have been vegan briefly. Same. I called myself vegan since I was like 15. I had no idea what it was. I thought it was about And honestly, I think that's one of the reasons why I felt like it wasn't a big deal to go vegetarian or something. I think it's really bad to make it look like a spectrum kind of thing. And what I want to say, oh yeah, 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 it's been very brief for me. Like less than a year, I've been actually vegan, meaning understanding really what it was. Um, but yeah, but we learn. uh, anyhow, I'm gonna continue. Oh, this one, I love it. So this one helped me a lot. Yeah, it helped me a lot because at some point you just get so angry, you want to destroy them, kind of thing, like a debate kind of thing. So that's again something from Debug Your Brain. Been very, very inspired by him. I mean, learned a lot from his live and just his advice in general and his outreach. I really recommend him. I mean, I'm sure you already know him, but whatever. You're a facilitator, not a fighter, and just I mean, it's what it is. I don't. I mean, yeah, we could say we're fighting for animals, yeah, sure, but like in the conversation, in the context of the conversation with the one person you're talking to, you are trying to make them see the light. So it's not really. It has to be only about you and them in that moment. I mean, of course, it is also like about because sometimes I know like it's not. It feels like it's not going anywhere with that person, but I feel like the audience will get it because it's very obvious that they're going in weird circles in their head. But hopefully the seed is planted as well. But fighting them is not going to necessarily help. So um, ooh, there's some debates in the chat. Okay. All right. So uh, yeah. Actually, I just said that. It's funny. Not seeing the outreach as a debate is, I think, very helpful. I mean, you can do it as a debate if you want to. It's a way of doing it. Some people do it, and they get more views in general because people love drama, and so they might. So it's a strategy to do that. I try to do a little different strategy and try to make it more of a social experiment kind of thing. Um, because if you make it as a debate, I mean, sometimes it turns into a debate without you wanting it to turn into a debate. So then it's about trying to bring it back to more of like a curious exploration and kind of like bringing it back to what they answered before. And if you bring the tone down in the conversation, usually they'll follow you. Like it's hard for them to just stay up when you come down. It's hard to do, but you can totally do it. It's about practice. Um, I'm not the best. I chose this picture for this slide because it went pretty badly. This conversation, I wasn't as calm as I should have been. But it was kind of a mess. But it got a lot of views because it was heated. So it's kind of like you know, different strategy, I guess, as well. Um, yeah, what's preventing you from going vegan? I'm still doing that. I was thinking about maybe changing that as well, but I don't know. Maybe something like, why aren't you vegan instead? Because it kind of gives them the subconscious, like it's kind of subconsciously saying like, why the hell aren't you vegan? Like, what's a reason for it? Like, there is no real reason for it because there isn't a valid one. But so maybe I would change it to that now. I'm not sure. I'm thinking about it. Let me know what you think about that. Um, so yes, I used to be very careful about. I mean, I'm still not using that in outreach. I'm using that in other contexts. Um, but it's a different reason why now I don't use it as well. Like before, it was really the report thing, but I think I could do it. I could because I talk about freaking black slavery these days, so I could totally. It's just as. I mean, maybe it's not as. I don't know. They're both very triggering subjects for people. So it's not really that the problem. It used to be that the problem, but now I don't go there because of what I've already said about killing. It's not about killing. It's not about like we should reduce the crop deaths and stuff like this, but or the pesticides, um, of course. but it's not what veganism is about really. It's about the use and exploitation of animals. So it's kind of confusing people a little bit, even if it is a Holocaust. Um, so that's why I kind of stray away from that, so that we don't go into that rabbit hole. I use questions as a prompt, meaning I start. I've 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 always done that. Starting, I mean, apart from yeah, I've actually always done that. Starting the conversation with a question. Um, Socratic method again. And making it like a game is very good. Like making it like, oh, it's a fun social experiment. Like it makes it intriguing. People are more likely to participate and to be curious. And their defenses are down. So it's gonna be easier to have an honest conversation. And I always give them a business card at the end that I've made. Make it look professional so that they take you a little bit more seriously. It's always good. Um, yeah, I just put my socials and Dominion, and I also tell them at the end now, which I'm trying to remember that, but I don't always remember doing that, and that's a shame. Remembering to tell them that they can contact me on my socials with any questions they might have about veganism. Okay, that's not what I wanted to do. Yeah. So yeah, now I'm doing it downtown because there's a bigger pool of people, like I've said, and there's just also because in my town it's one of the biggest in Montana, but like it's it's big in meaning there's a lot of houses, but downtown, like the actual main street, it's not there's not a lot. Like it's kind of the only place, one of the only places in my town where there's pedestrian traffic. So I don't have a lot of choice when it comes to that. There's that in campus, and maybe some parks, but there's not as much traffic. So this is the middle of Main Street. This is the best place for me to do it. And also it's in between stores so that because it can get in trouble sometimes because the business, if you are in front of a business, they can actually ask you to leave. If you are at the far side, like if you are at the end of the sidewalk, on the other side, like oh, what's her name? Victorious, she's done this. She had a sign in front of a store or a restaurant with like a sign for like about the Holocaust or something. But she like the police was trying to move her because the restaurant was not happy, but she was legal because she wasn't too close to the building, whatever. But I am against the building, but I am kind of in middle to like in between two, and I have never been bothered because they don't know what that's about veganism, so I think that might be a reason why as well. So I've already talked about the fact that it's digitally designed, if it's a word. um, I've talked already about like helping grow my YouTube channel, the better equipment. The better equipment is really for trying to get more reach on social media, and also in editing. That way we can zoom in and it looks better. Um, uh, let me. I can see. Right. Okay. Yeah, now I'm doing standing outreach instead of sitting outreach. I've already talked about that, I think, so I don't need to go again. Defining veganism is very important. I used to not do it, and I used to not know it really, so that much, I guess, the actual original definition um, of what's in the cross. So I think it's very important. Like that's why at the end I ask them, "What do you think veganism is?" And they say, usually that it's a diet, and I can then say, well, most people think that, but actually no. And this is why this is the same like answers, like the answers you gave are actually why people are vegan. Um, Reverse psychology is awesome. I want to use it forever. I think it's awesome because you always get like when they get that it's about veganism, they're like, oh, and when you tell them that animal slavery is so damn similar to human slavery, they lose their mind a little bit, and it's in the best way. Like they never usually they've never seen it like that, and it's very very powerful. So I highly recommend trying that kind of comparison. So powerful. I've never seen. I feel like my outreach conversations have never been as good as now because of the comparison being so powerful. And people often compliment it. They often say like, "Oh wow, like it's actually really like what you did with the comparison is very, it's very it makes a lot of sense, and they never thought about it. And they're often very like, wow, taken aback because it's so, and it's and the extent of it. I actually just made little advertisement moment. I made a podcast this week, like I published it yesterday, I think, about the book I've been reading about, like, human slavery and animal slavery, the comparison, the dreaded comparison, by Marjorie Spiegel. And it's a very short book, and it's so damn good. Like, wow. I only made one part of it, like just on the chapter so far, because it's very rich, very, very good. I highly recommend this book. Um, Even if I don't agree with everything she says, it's very, very powerful. Um, yeah, so check that out if you want to. And oh, I love this one. Fire again. Debug your brain. Agree, ask, answer. So this is very helpful because usually, like, I mean, it's very, sorry for the noise. It's very, very tempting to go into debate mode. Like, it's just natural to go into debate mode about this because also we're triggered. But thinking about this every time it's your turn to talk, when you're answering objections, especially, I mean, that's when it's used. It's you first you say, okay, most people think that, or I used to think that, or it makes sense why you would think that. Um, but really, uh, what do you think? Blah blah blah, whatever. Using a question to kind of show them, like, for example, weren't slave owners using the same mentality? I don't know. It's just a random question. I probably would not even agree there because this is just powerful enough that I could just do that. But you can try to ask a question if you have one, um, to answer that objection. You would have to refer back to Debug Your Brain, explains it better. But and then answering, actually giving the facts if they didn't figure it out themselves, all the information. So one of the last slides. Um, what I've implemented. So obviously, the in January I started implementing the human slavery comparison, and as I said, I'm loving it. It's super powerful. It's very fun also to do. Um, I would wait. Like, if you want to use my method, you're very welcome to. But I would wait a couple of a couple of months for me to perfect it, because I've actually changed a bunch in the document. I have a document. I've changed a bunch because I've been testing out some things, and it's not exactly ready to be used for the highest efficiency. If you want to use it right now, you're welcome to, of course, and film yourself and everything. Of course, I'm very happy for you to do that. That would be awesome. But if you want to also just wait a couple months until I've made it better, or try to stay tuned to what I found was better. And if you use this method, and you have, like, ideas on how to make it better, please let me know. That would be very helpful. So using human scenarios is so powerful in general. Like, for example, there was this I don't remember exactly, but, like, I think it was we were stuck in a welfare discussion with, like, a person, and I asked her, um if okay, if you put a human in a facility where you take their baby away, and of course you rape them, you take their baby away, and you steal them breast milk from them, is that okay? And she was like, no, it's horrific. And then she gets it much better. So usually when you replace non-human animals with humans, it makes people see it very clearly why it's a problem. Because we're so used to animals being enslaved that it's just the norm for us. So yeah. Mm, Saying morality and evil, I've never really done that. But now I'm especially no, I've used moral before. I haven't used evil too much, but whatever. I just don't use these terms because, not that I think it's really bad. I mean, some of these points I'm talking about, I think, are really bad to do. Some other things I'm talking about, I think, are just like, I don't think I don't think it's necessarily super bad, but I'm going with my gut kind of thing. Um, or like I think my way is better. Obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be doing it. But I don't think it's necessarily bad to use this. But anyways, when you use morality and evil, it makes it straight away into a philosophical conversation, and that's problematic because people will kind of lose sight of the victims often, and they will not get that this is not like some fun little hypothetical conversation or philosophical conversation that has no real, very, very huge consequences. And so I'm not saying hypotheticals are not useful in outreach, but if you frame it like it's a philosophical kind of like fun little, what if animal agriculture was animal slavery, kind of thing. They lose sight of like they are actually paying for slaves to be enslaved, right? I mean, enslaved animals to be enslaved right now, and it's very serious and it's horrible. So I would stray away from that. Also, because then we go into like, who is morality subjective when, and then you go out and you have to go into like, well, then we could say that murdering people is it's subjective to say that it's wrong, so why not do it, and then you have to go into that when you could have avoided that maybe if you didn't use these words and then make them think about it. um I say farmed animals now instead of farm animals. Oh, just saying farm animals makes me cringe now because I'm used to it. Farmed animals, because obviously it's like they're not like, it's not their nature to be farm animals. They are farmed, they are enslaved, they are used, but it's not like they're not here for you to farm them. That's not their purpose in life. That's not who they are. Like it's not like their DNA to be I mean, they've been bred into existence and bred to be as good a product for us as possible. But it's it's not like their purpose is actually objectively to be a farm animal. So I say farmed instead now. Um, I think a bunch of people know these things, but it's good to talk about them. Um, I want to check what you're talking about. I love a lot of vegans, and they sometimes don't like me because I am an omnivore. I've been nice and even learned to make vegan food for them. It's bitter items. You don't understand why they don't like you. Do you like people who rape other people? Do you like people who abuse other people? No, because you empathize with the victims. They're not gonna like you if they know what you're doing. I mean, it also, why are you focusing on that instead of what you're doing wrong? Like it's not about being nice to vegans and then being nice to you. It's about like they are very right to be angry at you because you are contributing to a horrible thing that they're trying to stop, especially activists. But like it's not okay to not be vegan. It's the moral obligation. It's not okay to enslave others and to use their bodies. Um Anyhow, okay. So I say using exploitation instead of cruelty now. I've already explained that. That's the vegan definition, using exploitation. I mean the original one. And it's just the best one in my opinion. Uh, this one is a little complicated. Okay, I mean to me. So, okay, let me put this big. So consent. Okay, for a second I used consent there. Um, I had a scenario that I removed from my outreach. That was like the scenario with the Uber driver fondling a woman who's unconscious in the car, and she's never gonna feel anything and not remember it. And it was trying to address the welfarist issue thing, and why it's wrong to use someone's body even if they don't suffer. But people would always say, "Well, what?" I would say, "Why is it wrong?" And they said, "Well, there's no consent," which is absolutely the answer that you would give. Obviously, it's accurate. But the problem is that it's not about consent when it comes to animal use and exploitation, because they can't necessarily conceptualize of what is going on for them. It's like a kid cannot consent to a sexual scenario, like with an adult. Like they can't conceptualize of what's going on, like the power dynamic. They don't really understand what's going on. They are not able to communicate their consent if they are able to conceptualize. Like it's not really this idea of consent is not really relevant to what we're talking about. Like it's the same with bestiality. Like they can't necessarily sometimes it's like especially they cannot communicate necessarily if they want this or not, and there's a power dynamic. Usually the human has power over them, so they don't necessarily even have a choice. Anyways, whatever. Like there's a lot of different things going on, but it's not about consent. It's not about like an animal seeming like they're consenting to you taking their eggs. It's about you seeing them as a resource and an object to use, and that is literally the root of all of our problems. This is exactly the mentality and the paradigm we're trying to shift. So yeah, it's kind of irrelevant in this sense. It makes sense what you would say, consent, but I don't use it for this reason anymore. Mm, um, I use an accountability statement. I've already talked about that. And ooh, this I got from David Rams. David Rams reacted to a few vegan outreaches channels, and I was lucky. I was one of them. And he said he gave some feedback, and he said like uh, it would be better if I didn't say thank you after holding them accountable at the end, after saying like you're responsible for this. Thank you for your time. Instead of doing that, I switch it and I say thank you for your time. Please remember you're responsible for this. Have a good one. And now I try to remember most of the time. Sometimes it's kind of automatic. I'm trying to remember, but sometimes I don't. But I think it's important. And also something that I've learned is that it's okay for me to ask a question and not rescue them, kind of thing, meaning like I'm putting you on the spot. Sometimes I do it still, but sometimes it's helpful to say like, "Oh, I know I'm making you uncomfortable," because you can see the rapport just going down. But sometimes it's helpful to, I think most of the time it's better if you just make them uncomfortable and let them sit in this discomfort. Um, like Debug Your Brain says, just don't interrupt when someone is thinking for a long time about what you asked them. It's a very good sign that they're really processing what they're saying and really considering it, instead of just giving just a reaction, without thinking about it. Okay, so this is one of the last slides. So what I want to implement in the future, obviously I want to implement different methods, hopefully better methods, new locations, maybe in the park. Hopefully if there's enough traffic, that could be cool. New kinds of comparisons. I think there's a lot of potential for that. Different kinds of comparisons with humans, and maybe some footage, like I've said. And I want to go into real quick some things because I made these slides and then I forgot some stuff. I didn't forget them, I guess, but I thought about some other stuff. So as I said, I changed the Uber driver scenario. I also had something that was like, if you lost an animal companion or pet, whatever, and someone wanted to barbecue their body, what would you think about that? And then I would get people saying like, because that was David's idea. I didn't really vibe with it too much, that question, but he said, like it's trying to make them understand that it's not a utilitarian thing. It's like, it doesn't matter if they don't suffer. You don't want to view them as resources, whatever. And then we actually talked about it recently and said that maybe we could add a question with like, what's wrong with people using human bodies to make objects to sell? Because it exists, these like people using human skin to do like little dolls or something like that. Like, and that could be a good way to explain why using someone is wrong. But I'm not doing that yet because I think I have a lot of questions already and they're covering that already. But I stopped it because people would say sometimes, well, after you're dead, and I get that, because it's like me, for example, when I die, I want to be buried so that animals can. I'm not in a coffin like a normal coffin, something that animals can go through so they can actually eat meat so that the ecosystem works, whatever, whatever. And so in that sense, I don't know, like I don't know, it's kind of like it was very shaky because people wouldn't get the point. They wouldn't get the point that oh, it encourages people to make a dog farming happen kind of thing, and that it's still seeing the dog as a resource and it's problematic, whatever, all this stuff. Like, I mean, I guess my example with me in the ground is not the same exactly because it's not by humans, but you know, people weren't getting my point, and it was a problem. So um yeah, I'm not using that anymore. And I have added a question I'm very proud of and I'm very excited about is basically saying in times of chattel slavery, there were welfarists and abolitionists. Abolitionists thought that it was okay to carry on slavery if we treated slaves pleasantly and they didn't suffer too much, which is golden example to me. Like when I learned that, I was like, what? What? They're welfarists and abolitionists too. And like you will see like the amount of similarities when you read that book that I've talked about, and also I'm going to make episodes on that if you're interested in the podcast. But that the amount of similarities, it's insanity. It's just crazy. It's unbelievable. Anyways, it's incredibly powerful when people get it straight away. Like if you ask this question and then later on they often go back to the welfare of animals. They're like, well, yeah, but if you treat them well, while killing them or exploiting them, and they're like, remember when we talked about that for slavery and you said it's not okay? And then they get it straight away and they have nothing. um so I am very happy with that question. um that was very, very helpful. So I've mentioned several times the anger bit. Um, so I'm not exactly sure about that. I don't know because I'm still figuring things out. I would wonder what your opinion is on anger and its place in outreach. Because in speeches, I think anger is very, very much in its place. I think it's very because you're diffusing the heat on like a crowd, and so it's easier to receive the message, and it's not necessarily bad for rapport or something like that. um and rapport is maybe not as important in a speech. I don't know. But I don't know because I think passion is very powerful as well. I think it's all about the time and place, and I think it's a case by case thing. Sometimes if you're too passionate or if you are angry but too much in the wrong moment and you're saying it for the wrong thing that you're saying, it can backfire. And sometimes you say that it's like super powerful. So I mean, in an angry way, and it's super powerful. So it really depends. I think most of the time it's safer to just keep calm and stay level headed because I think that always works, to be honest. So I don't know. I'm still thinking about that. Let's see what you're talking about though. Um, thank you, USIUV. Um, uh, okay. I mean, that could be a strategy to use that as well, but I think it would be destroying rapport maybe. But like, um, that's a good point. Like when you're talking with people, like. But I think you would have to. I'm not sure if you're saying like to use it in outreach, but like if you were to use that in outreach, I think you would have to be very smart about how you do it. Um, but yeah. Okay, I don't think there's anything about this, so I will carry on. Okay, so oh yes, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've changed my strategy on my channel. I've taken down the quote of my banner, which I love, obviously still love. It's the quote from, I mean, based on Leslie Cross's ideas. And the reason is, and also my thumbnails have changed. I mean, not my thumbnails, yeah, my thumbnails, I guess. But like the titles, especially, do not contain vegan in them anymore. Like I'm trying to hide the fact that this is a vegan channel because it's all about the reverse psychology thing. So hopefully people come to my channel and they think it's all about a social experiment, and then once they've actually had the seed planted, hopefully they understand that it's about veganism. So that's the new strategy. Pretty excited about that, honestly. Um, because I want non-vegans to watch it, you know. I mean, it's great that vegans watch it, obviously, because it can be great to be like looking at each other's outreach and learn from each other, of course. But non-vegans are really the target. So especially with shorts, because let's face it, they're probably not watching. I mean, not many. I mean, some are watching the long format videos, but not many. Yeah. So I think well, I probably forgot some stuff, but we're gonna move on to the Q&A time. Um, so guys, if you have any questions or any feedback or criticisms about my outreach or style of activism, whatever it is, really, please comment and we'll talk about it. Any questions or comments? And if you have already answered, I mean, if you had already commented something that I didn't see and you want me to answer now, please write it again or let me know that so I can find it. Because I tried to go through it, but of course it's hard to spot everything. That is a comment directed to me or something. So, any questions or comments or criticisms? Oh, okay. So, when I started doing vegan public outreach more than a quarter of a century ago, oh my God, you're amazing. I found that not thinking my God was, I found that not thinking my goal was to change people very helpful. Instead, seeing myself as a marketer or communicator of compassion was a much better approach in terms of goals. I get what you mean. Like, if you're focusing on like, I have to change this person that I'm talking to, like, I mean, first of all, you can't actually change someone, you can only influence them, but like, it feels powerless because you're kind of like, uh, you're stressed out, like, you kind of like, I don't know, you're tense, you're like, I have to get you, you know, and that happens often to me that I'm trying to just, no, just get there already. Like, just, I'll make you just get there. And you can only plant seeds. You can push them as much as you need to, but you can't really make them change. So I get what you mean. It's a more empowering way of seeing yourself. Like, you know, I get what you mean. Yeah, definitely, it's helpful to like a facilitator, not a fighter, kind of thing. I can't remembering that you cannot change people. It's not your fault that they're not changing. It's their fault. But of course, you should be as effective as you can in influencing others. But yeah. My one critique is that you don't use enough vegan character on some of the more annoying corners to debate. What do you mean by that? Do you mean like pressing them enough? Because I agree. Sometimes like it depends. I feel like um sometimes okay, now that I've interrupted them more, I try to because I interrupt them now to make them like stop planning so many things. But definitely that was a big problem, and sometimes it's a problem when I forget to do that, like to be like um you know, like to address everything they're saying because there's too many things I didn't remember. That was a big problem. And I knew that. It's just I just didn't remember. So it was I didn't interrupt them. That was a big problem. And I would put it on the screen, and it was not good because people weren't watching that as much. Um, but yeah, thank you. Um, Did you start the With a Free chapter you're working with, or did it already exist when you joined? I made it here because they were a group of vegan activists that were not very active. But yeah, I made it here because there was none. Tofu Dog doing amazing outreach too. I mean, like a lot of you actually are doing great outreach as well, so that's really, really awesome. Yep. Yeah, the people in the 50s, I think, 40s, 50s in the UK who made that. Why don't I get a job? That's my job. Actually, I'm waiting for my green card, so I'm not even allowed to get a job. It's not legal for me. I do what I want, but this is my job. I'm not getting paid, but this is my job. Let's see. Thank you, Louis. I don't know if your name is said Louis or Louis, but thank you. I actually meant literal vegan character chops and maybe some roundhouse kicks, but your version was French. Yeah, maybe not hitting people or doing karate. Maybe it's not the best approach. Is the end game of veganism the extinction of farmed animals? Well, maybe if that, like, we're not breeding them into existence anymore. Yeah, we bred them into existence and bred them to be a species that is dependent on us. So yeah, maybe that's the best thing for them. Why is it a bad thing to be extinct if it means you're not bred into existence to be enslaved, etc., and you can't live on your own away from your tormentor? I don't see that there's an issue with that. I get that you like them, but is that a good enough reason to bring them into existence to continue to exploit them? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, yeah, we could have sanctuaries when we have them. That's a possibility. Still, we can do that. But if people don't do that, then they will go extinct. You know, I don't think that there's a problem with that. Exactly. The end game is the end of enslavement of sentient beings. Yep. It's illegal here. I could get deported if they know it. Anyhow, I don't have to justify myself to you why I don't have a job or something. If humans went extinct and aliens decide to bring them back to be enslaved, sounds problematic. Yeah. Oh, oops. Okay. So, how long is your average activism session, and how many people do you talk to? It used to be just once a week and one conversation, but now I try, it depends, but I try, especially it depends on the temperatures, but usually it's twice a week. I've tried different things, but for now, what works the best is doing it twice a week. And because it's still pretty cold, and now it's not going to be as cold, I do just 2 conversations, like on Saturday afternoon, and 2 conversations on, I mean, not today, obviously, because I'm doing the live, and 2 conversations on Sundays. But it depends. Sometimes I do it on Friday, whatever. And so in the summer, I'll be able to do a little bit more. But I try to keep it like just a few conversations per day, because then I've noticed I get impatient and I'm just not as good. So probably 3 questions at once is my max, because then I get just impatient and the rapport is just bad. So, but yeah. And I try to talk to more people now so that I have more footage so I can decide what to post, let the best video get posted. Ever thought of doing any collabs with any YouTube content creators? I am a big fan of Just Taking Debug Your Brain. Also, maybe a collab with him. I mean, he's awesome. I really love his work, especially his outreach. I learned a lot from him. But yeah, maybe. I don't really like doing talking head videos. I mean, I actually hate it. In terms of like, because you have to edit so much, and I get just so much in my head about like and I don't like doing like the something that's not live, because live is different to me. But um, maybe some conversation that would be really cool if you would be up for that. That would be awesome. Also, maybe um, uh, let's see. Interesting. I actually made an episode on pet ownership, a podcast on that, and it's talking about that as well. Like, like the fact that, like, how do we transition to from like a world where animals like cats and dogs, for example, I mean some breeds of them are unable to survive, without humans controlling them, like training them and just being dependent on humans. How do we transition from that to a world where they would be able to be by themselves, or their species just doesn't exist anymore, and it's just different species? So the domesticated animals would not all go extinct. Some of them would surprise you. Yeah, yeah, some of them definitely. Maybe not all of them though. But yeah. Well, someone is moderating, and they just did it. Oh, yeah, I was getting a lot of heat from them about my job, um, trying to get me kicked out of the U.S. or something. Um. Okay. Any other question? Okay. Okay. So, sorry for saying okay all the time. Do you think Do you think it's paramount that vegans understand the definition of veganism before doing activism? Yes, I do. I do. I mean, I don't think it's gonna happen, because I think a lot of them just learn as we go. But yes, I think if that could be something that was possible, yes, definitely. I mean, all activists should always learn and like try to educate themselves in the form of books or whatever, videos, whatever it is, really, as much as you can. During, I mean, not just as much as you can, just like continue to educate yourself, you know, forever, really. But yeah, yeah, definitely. Mm-mm-mm. Uh, does your husband accompany you in some activism? I'm assuming you're married, because I thought once I heard you mention that. Yes, I'm married. Okay. No, okay. My husband is obviously vegan. I mean, I say obvious because I would not would not work. Um, he is very supportive of my activism, but he does not accompany me. He is a very big introvert. Not that introverts cannot do, which I am an introvert too, actually. Um, to some degree. But like I never really go out with people. I just do things on the internet with people, I guess. But apart from marriage. Anyways, he doesn't go with me. Also, he works nights, so it's kind of impossible. But no, he came to a march I organized once. He's awesome though. He's very supportive of it, and he helps sometimes with the comments. And it helps me a lot with bouncing ideas back. I mean, he buys all my equipment. um, okay, I'm trying to. There are various definitions. Airy has rights-based definition, and CJ using the definition. Yeah, yeah, they are, but it's not the original definition. But it wouldn't be. I mean, I wouldn't. It's just that if you use the word vegan, you're using like a word like that word for a reason. You're using that word that was made with that specific definition. If you're changing the meaning all the time, like it has just no. It doesn't. You know. Um, So maybe they would have to call themselves something different if they disagree with the original definition and make a new word. Um, but also like because yeah, I mean it's just gonna confuse people. Interesting. It is a rights-based definition of veganism valid and true? You would have to explain what rights-based mean, because really, like, the definition of veganism is only about the use and exploitation of animals. For example, it's not about the rights to live, yeah, the rights um, of life or something. It's not even about that. It's only about the right to not be enslaved and used. Um, so it depends what you mean, really, you know? Ooh. Do you think protest style activism works? Okay, I don't know enough about that to really have a strong stance on it. I I I have organized a march and gone to marches and stuff, but honestly, it's not my favorite type at all. I don't know enough, but from my uneducated guess, I don't think it works as well as average. But it depends. It depends because I think creative protests probably have a great. It's just a great way of doing activism in terms of like media because it's creative and it's like I don't know. You shouldn't ask me this. I don't know enough about it. That's a good question. Probably you guys know more about this than me. Um, but I'm not gonna do protests. Not my. I don't think it's best. Any other questions or criticisms or feedback? Um, hope I didn't. Okay, these are gonna be the last questions or like the last type of um the last ones to go through because we're gonna wrap up soon because it's getting close to 2 hours. I'm gonna let you guys. Um, I'm gonna give you guys a few minutes if you have more questions or anything to say. How do you track conversions? Oh, do you use any sites like Activist Hub? Do you mean conversions like of like people going vegan? Is that what you mean? Can you specify what you mean? Because I don't use anything, but I'm not exactly sure. Like, do you mean I don't really? I mean, I have for With a Free, they have this website that they track like if people check the resources, but I don't do that for mine. Yep, I don't do that. Um, I don't know how it works, but I don't know. Um, is veganism about not exploiting animals or not exploiting sentient beings? I guess it's about not exploiting animals because humans are sentient beings, and we're not talking about human animals because it's like it's a movement for you know animals specifically because animals are not represented anywhere. You know, so I would say it's animals, not humans. Well, guys, um, um, I'm not gonna answer that Garrett diligence. We've gone through this many times. I'm not gonna do it again. um, would you consider organizing a reading club? Actually, there's someone in my vegan group here that wanted to do that. I mean, honestly, that's a good idea, especially like maybe doing live streams with that or something. I think that's a great idea. I'll consider that. Honestly, that's a great idea. Thank you. I'll think about that. I'll definitely consider that. Um, no, I don't agree with that. Ooh, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. It's not about human rights as well. It's about other animals because humans are already represented, you know? Anyhow, anyhow, guys, thank you so much for being here and being patient with my rambling. And thank you so much for all the feedback and the comments. And I hope this was helpful in some sense. So yeah, I'm gonna go now. Thank you so much for all the support and watching the videos and commenting and liking and being vegan and being active. And please educate yourself, just like we're all trying to. and become active for the animals as well, and be vegan, of course. um, thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.